Pakistan's Asim Munir is now in Beijing, fueling questions over whether she is beginning to call the shots behind the scenes. Islamabad's key US-Iran go-between has arrived in Beijing, prompting speculation over what signal China may send next. Munir's meeting in Beijing is drawing attention as Trump appears to shift course again on an Iran deal. Is this a peace mission or a strategic briefing? Asim Munir's Beijing visit is already raising bigger geopolitical questions. Pakistan Army Chief Asim Munir is in Beijing alongside Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. Munir is reportedly holding talks with Chinese leaders during the visit. The Beijing trip comes only days after Munir traveled to Tehran for talks linked to efforts to mediate the Iran war. Pakistan's Interior Minister, Mohsin Naqvi, was also part of the Tehran engagement, according to earlier reports. Munir has notably been described in reports as Islamabad's key negotiator between the United States and Iran. China has said it is willing to work with Pakistan to help restore peace and stability in the Middle East. The back-to-back visits to Tehran and Beijing have sparked fresh questions about China's broader role in the diplomacy. Donald Trump said he has instructed U.S. negotiators not to rush into any agreement with Iran as talks continue over a possible deal. On May 24, Trump stated that the U.S. blockade would remain in place until a final agreement is formally signed between the parties involved. The remarks marked a noticeable shift after Trump had claimed just a day earlier that a deal was already largely negotiated. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "If I make a deal with Iran, it will be a good and proper one, not like the one made by former President Barack Obama, which gave Iran massive amounts of cash and a clear and open path to a nuclear weapon. Our deal is the exact opposite, but nobody has seen it or knows what it is. It isn't even fully negotiated yet. So don't listen to the losers, who are critical about something they know nothing about. Unlike those before me who should have solved this problem many years ago, I don't make bad deals." Unquote. According to Al Jazeera, Trump appeared to be stepping back from the proposed deal amid growing internal political pressure. Meanwhile, U.S. officials told Reuters that Iran had agreed in principle to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Officials also said the current framework could provide negotiators with up to 60 days to finalize a broader agreement. Trump administration officials reportedly claimed that Mujtaba Khamenei had endorsed the broad framework of the proposed deal. However, Tasnim news agency reported that the United States was still resisting key Iranian demands, including the release of frozen Iranian financial assets. Marco Rubio told the New York Times that a nuclear agreement could not be finalized in 72 hours on back of a napkin. Rubio said negotiations involving Iran's uranium enrichment program and nuclear stockpile would likely require much more time. The U.S. Secretary of State added that reopening the Strait of Hormuz remained the immediate priority for Washington. Amid the growing uncertainty, Iranian officials said no final understanding could be reached without approval from Mujtaba Khamenei. Iranian sources told CBS News that Khamenei was operating from a highly restricted and undisclosed location. CBS reported that the isolation had slowed communication between Iranian officials and U.S. negotiators involved in the talks. Reports also stated that even Iranian diplomats were facing difficulty communicating directly with Khamenei during the ongoing negotiations. Amid rising hopes for a ceasefire framework, Trump is now insisting that only he can decide Iran's future, portraying himself as the sole arbiter of any final arrangement. On May 24, he told an American network that signing any final Iran deal is totally up to me, stressing that nothing will be agreed without his personal approval. Trump insisted that if there's news, it's only going to be good news, adding that he doesn't make bad deals, a line meant to reassure both domestic supporters and nervous partners abroad. He said he has instructed his negotiators not to rush into a deal with Tehran, arguing that moving too fast could lock in terms that fall short of U.S. objectives. Trump claimed that time is on our side as talks continue, signaling that he believes Iran is under more pressure from sanctions and the blockade than Washington is from the war's costs. Officials in Washington have made clear the naval blockade on Iran will remain in place until an agreement is reached and signed, keeping economic and military pressure firmly on Tehran during negotiations. Trump said, and I quote, "One of the worst deals ever made by our country was the Iran nuclear deal, put forth and signed into existence by Barack Hussein Obama and the rank amateurs of the Obama administration. It was a direct path to Iran developing a nuclear weapon. Not so with the transaction currently being negotiated with Iran by the Trump administration. The exact opposite, in fact. The negotiations are proceeding in an orderly and constructive manner, and I have informed my representatives not to rush into a deal in that time is on our side. The blockade will remain in full force and effect until an agreement is reached, certified, and signed. Both sides must take their time and get it right. There can be no mistakes. Our relationship with Iran is becoming a much more professional and productive one. They must understand, however, that they cannot develop or procure a nuclear weapon or bomb." Unquote. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu has said Trump personally assured him that Iran's nuclear threat will be eliminated, not just managed or delayed. Netanyahu claims their discussions covered security in the Strait of Hormuz, ceasefire terms on current battlefields and, crucially, the shape of final-stage nuclear negotiations. The Israeli premier insists any final deal must dismantle Iran's enrichment facilities, arguing that merely limiting or monitoring them is not enough to guarantee long-term security. He has also demanded that enriched uranium be physically removed from Iranian territory, saying that as long as the material stays inside Iran, the risk of a breakout remains. However, reports say Iran currently refuses to discuss detailed nuclear issues in the present round of Memorandum of Understanding talks, keeping that file off the table for now. Tehran reportedly wants nuclear questions postponed until later, final agreement negotiations, hoping to secure security guarantees and sanctions relief language before touching its most sensitive program. Iranian state media reported on May 24 that Tehran has not accepted any specific nuclear action as part of the current talks with Washington, pushing back on speculation that a detailed deal is already in place. This clarification followed U.S. officials telling the New York Times that Iran may be prepared in principle to give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium as part of a broader understanding. According to those reports, Iran has so far offered only a general commitment rather than precise, binding terms on what would happen to its enriched uranium. The question of how, where, and under what verification Iran would relinquish or neutralize that material would be worked out later, the New York Times report said. All this comes despite earlier reporting that Supreme Leader Mujtaba Khamenei opposed sending enriched uranium abroad, a key sticking point in past negotiations. IRGC-linked outlet Tasnim News has reported that peace talks could begin with a limited memorandum of understanding between Iran and the US rather than a full, formal agreement. The reported draft memorandum would temporarily waive some US sanctions on Iranian oil exports, offering Tehran economic breathing space. That waiver would allow Iran to sell oil without the current sanctions-related limits on volume and buyers, at least for a defined period. The same draft reportedly calls for a halt to fighting across all fronts in the Middle East, linking nuclear and regional de-escalation. Tasnim News also says the proposal explicitly includes Lebanon in this wider ceasefire framework, which would directly affect the Hezbollah-Israel front. Additionally, the draft envisions that steps related to the Strait of Hormuz and maritime security there would be implemented within 30 days of the understanding taking effect. The framework reportedly sets a 60-day timeline to begin and advance more formal nuclear negotiations, suggesting this MOU would function as a temporary off-ramp rather than a full revival of the old deal.